What's going on, traders? Welcome to my stream. Today's Tuesday. We had a big mover called MLGO. The ticker went up from on Monday. It went up from $2 up to $16, and it pretty much spiked up the small cap market. Today we have about I don't know about three or four movers over 100%. Is that one mover that starts out the small cap market, and we had a pretty intense day. I sadly was ready, but was not completely ready. I'm actually dealing with my deload week because I go to the gym and I have a deload week in which I don't work out. I was pretty much working out for the last 3 weeks, almost like twice a day. So when this week came around, I didn't really have that much energy. But anyway, moving on to my trade, I ended up making a huge gain on MLGO. MLGO was my biggest mover so far. As you can see my PNL there, around 13,000. I ended up banking pretty huge on it. I'm gonna explain my thought process. On Monday, on Monday I ended up buying it around 380, and I sold it around. I bought it around 4 and sold it at 480. This ticker initially had news that they had an offering at 80 cents a share. And it pretty much grinded and squeezes the shorts out to infinity. On the first green day, I ended up taking a small loss when I was short from around 610 to like 650. So I ended up finishing up the day yesterday pretty much flat. And today's Tuesday, and this thing ended up going to 17. Um, the ticker pretty much what happened was in the middle of the day, it did a pattern that I really like. The pattern that I'm interested in is day two continuation. It's a very simple pattern. As you can see, so here it's a very simple pattern. What I like to do is I like to draw yesterday's high. Yesterday's high is right here, 1534. So you can see draw by this line. So what I do is I wait for the stock to break yesterday's high, which is over here, and I do buy it. That's really all I really do. I like day two continuations a lot. I didn't really wait for red to green. As you can see, yesterday's close was around $14. And $14 was right here, so I didn't really buy it as it broke $14 because below $14 it would be red, above $14 would be green. So I ended up buying and chasing it at 16. I did that with around, as you can see, so 4,000 shares. So that puts me up. So I did it two times a size because I was that comfortable with this setup. Um, I ended up buying 16 at 69, 69, 69, 60, 90, 60, 90, 60, 90. The stock goes into a halt right about here. There was an opportunity for a dip buy, but most of the time I was in the green. You can see so that I was mostly in the green over here. Uh, and um, and pretty much we just spiked up to 20. I sell at 19.5 was my the best fill. You can see so by my screenshot here. MLGO, my best fill was at 19.7. So from 16 to 19.7, I ended up making a huge gain. The stock ended up selling off, sadly. I was thinking it's going to do 20, 25, $20 or something, but that was not the case. It ended up being a huge mover of the day. I ended up taking a couple of losses. I was not really awake at 7 o'clock, so I ended up waking up a little later. Like usually, I was actually exhausted from trading last week and from hitting the gym, so I was not really prepared for such a hot market. But we're gonna go review a couple of tickers that provided really nice liquidity. MULN, as you can see, I ended up making a huge gain on it. It wasn't really like a huge gain, but it was a $1,200 gain. What I did was is I waited for the stock to break the pre-market highs, which was over here. Uh, Actually over here, it it reclaimed VWAP, and we held 42. And pretty much what I ended up doing, I waited for the stock to break pre-market highs. This is a setup that I also did on Arnaz last week. If you guys remember Arnaz last week, Arnaz broke yesterday's high. The pre-market highs over here. You can see, so Arnaz over here broke the pre-market highs as a first green day bounce pattern, and it pretty much ran to 170. So I pretty much got into MULN as soon as the stock broke pre-market highs, which is over here at around 52. The stock spiked really quickly up to 72. So from 52 up to 72, I could have made a total profit of around 32%. I ended up taking it off as soon as it hit 60, and I didn't look at it at all. Um, that's about it. TNON is the next ticker that was pretty much active. TNON, if you were awake and using my scanners at around 7 o'clock, the stock spiked from, $2 up to $6. So you could have capitalized on this move if you were using my scanners. And I wasn't actually, I'm not really active. I try to be active around 7 a.m. as much as I can. But due to the fact that I'm in the States, it's really hard to wake up at 6:30. But I'll be more in Europe soon, and I'll be able to trade more at 7 a.m. TNON, I ended up going long around 5 over here. I should have went long at around 470. It spiked to 470. I didn't take my profits out. I ended up shorting it as it broke below VWAP. It ended up going down to 320. I had a 10% win, and then I took it out for flat as a short. It was the right thing to do because we went over to 5, and now it's very choppy. TNON, if I were going to say was a great stock to buy in the pre-market using scanners and potentially shorting the 570 high of the day break. That's the thing about trading. You just don't know if it's going to break 570 or is just going to reject 570. In this situation, it rejected 570 and it tanked. But you just don't know whether or not this thing. So this is not, I don't really consider this a strategy, but it works, especially on this one because TNON was gapping up like 300%, so it did work here. But just because it's up 300% does not mean it cannot go up, 1,000% or 500%. So keep that in mind when shorting. So I ended up buying it at 5. I had a 15% profit of 575. I didn't take it. Came back down, sold it for flat. Ended up shorting. It didn't work out. I came back. So TNON was a pretty much a flat trade. As you can see, I do have SPXL long. This is the S&P 500 long. I was speaking in my s- i- in my live streams or whatever. Sorry, my my aftermarket scanner is pretty much going up live right now, and it's blowing up my headphones. Sorry about that. Let me just turn off the sound. So as of right now, the S&P 500 is bouncing. The reason I went long in SPXL, as you can see, I have a 10K win there. I went long as soon as we had our first 1 minute, first daily to make a new high on the S&P 500. As you can see, we had multiple days in a row in which the S&P 500 did not finish the day before's high. So only about, as you can see, only on this day here, the S&P 500 finished above yesterday's high, above yesterday's close. So that gave me an indication to go long on the SPXL. SPXL is the bull ETF of the S&P 500. So I ended up going long around here on the SPXL right there, and I'm holding it for about 2 weeks. I'm planning to take profits in the 160s, between 155 and 160s, and I'm still holding a 10K profit there. That was a great trade. It was very easy. This was very easy. You can see none of these candles closed above yesterday's close. The only candle you can see, none of these green candles closed above yesterday's close. So only here the stock closed above yesterday's close. This was the close. I don't know, above yesterday's high. That's kind of like what I'm thinking about. I did have a couple of losses. There was a lot of opportunity. We had DM that spiked up in the pre-market. I wasn't really awake that fast because I work very slowly. You had this ticker DM go up like this from $3 up to 5 in the pre-market using scanners. I didn't really trade it. I was trying to buy as it broke 5420. We ended up not going over 420. But you had ALMS. ALMS was another ticker we had news on. We have a pre-market breakout right here of 650. It ended up not working out. And we have another pre-market breakout right here, and it ended up not working out. So this ticker ended up being a dud, ALMS. ALMS did have news, collaboration deal. So an honorable mention was DATS. DATS has been a very astronomical ticker. I traded DATS in the morning. Unfortunately, I was buying DATS over here at 340, and I ended up selling it right here at 267. So in three candles, I hit my max loss in the morning, and after I hit my max loss in the morning, I was not that eager to trade. And then the ticker pretty much held this trend and we hit $6. So, I ended up making the big chunk of my gain in MLGO. Um, a big chunk of my gain, I ended up making it in MLGO. MLGO was was a day two continuation, and the other tickers were more like flat trade, loss trade. I mean, you have to understand like my limit per loss per ticker is around 1,000. So once I'm down 1,000 on a ticker, I am very unlikely to trade it again. Even though like that's here, you can see so that's here. I pretty much buy it as it breaks. Try to make some new high over here, and then I get stumped on. This ticker has literally that's here literally kind of crushed me here because I buy it as it tries to break this high here at 330 and I got dumped on in like three candles. So my day started red while I was down like 1,000 at least from this ticker alone. But we had an amazing opportunity and an amazing range. That gave nice range, $2 to $6. Tnon gave really nice range from 6 o'clock in the morning, $2 to $6. Double top, kind of bounced a bit and kind of just chopping out. Um, we had DM here. We had a really nice spike over here, $3 to $5. So we had about 3 to 4 opportunities today. Really nice. I don't know what AQB is. AQB is aftermarket runner, but GDHG So um, we had a lot of opportunity. MLGO was an opportunity day two continuation, which I did double A size, and I ended up locking in 13K. That was to me a no-brainer because MLGO was technically the first runner after a very sell-off market, and I was also long on the market and also long on MLGO. So those were primarily the stocks that really gave me money. The other ones were a little bit harder to trade because I was originally long at 340, then I dumped it at 270, so it already reached my max loss. And once it reaches my max loss, it's just hard for me to relong it. It's like, you get burned on the stove once, and then and then you try it again, and then you don't want to try it again because you just got burnt. So maybe I should have relonged dots. Maybe I should have. And Tnon, I traded it correctly. It was very hard because we ended up being in a channel, and actually over here on this over here is where I should have shorted. Over here, the 575 is where I would have shorted, and I was long. And right here is where I should have longed it, and I was short. So Tnon has not really worked. Actually, the most amount of money to make was around 7 o'clock, where it spiked from like 3 to 6 and like really quickly. We had so we had four tickers that really performed well. We had DM, which were a nice spike there. We had I don't know, Allure there. I don't know. Is that Allure? ALUR? No, that's a ticker from another day. So the primary tickers that made money was MLGO. I actually should have shorted MLGO a bit as we were brushing in the pre-market over here against 14, and I could have covered into the 10s. As you can see in the pre-market around 7 o'clock, we tried to brush into the 14s. I could have shorted some 13.5 and cover into the 10s because, it was trying to go red to green over here. I could have shorted a bit here and then covered over here. So I missed that. But what I did was I bought day two continuation with big size and made money. The majority of the tickers were very hard because it required you to be up at 7, and I was up sadly at 8, and I missed this whole move. And then I went long and it double top, and then I went short and it was flat. So it was a very and then you had DM, which is the ticker that I tried to make some money and I pretty much was red on. And then you had DATS. I mean, DATS was maybe I should have relonged DATS. We did have plenty of range today. We had three really hot opportunities. And MULN, I could have made around 30% over here, which if I had just held a little longer. Just I longed it at around right here at 53. If I would have held it for three more candles, I would have made another around 2,000 there. It's just three more candles. I could have made another 3,000, so I could have made a huge chunk here. So it was this day was relatively hard, especially if I'm doing my deload week, and especially as I am a little bit, we definitely had between 3 to 4 plays per day. Now the S&P 500 bounced, and we had MLGO just completely crushing shorts on Monday. So we definitely have movers. It's just a matter of, holding your maximum loss per day, holding your maximum loss per ticker, and then pretty much trying not to make mistakes. That's ideally what you want. Um, and that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and make sure you subscribe and make sure you also take advantage of my 15% off sale valid until Sunday, March 30th. The 15% off sale is valid until March 30th. Until after that, just regular prices. Other than that, guys, you guys have a good one out there and see you on my next video. Peace out.